Toxic masculinity, I feel like do you feel like that term has a positive connotation to it? Because you're like, oh, it's suggesting that there's a more positive version?
Oh, no. Yeah. So, I mean, I think like ultimately when we talk about toxic masculinity, I feel like we're talking about like a perversion of
Yeah.
real masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, instead of using strength to protect the vulnerable, right? You're using strength to bully someone.
Right.
Instead of using, like reason and logic to, live a wise life, you're doing things like mansplaining or gaslighting or like devil's advocate, right? And so, like I feel like it's important to talk about toxic masculinity, right? And it's important to like recognize that not only is it harmful to women, but it's also super harmful to men.
Yeah.
To grow up with these stereotypes of how men ought to be. Like, you're not allowed to have feelings, you're never allowed to cry, like, all that matters is, are you a Spartan,
Yeah.
Viking, whatever, right? And so being able to say, like, yes, these are the ways in which masculinity has been twisted, allows us, I think, to talk about how we might reclaim some of those masculine traits and see them in young men as a benefit.
Yeah, okay, I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Because I feel like, I've talked about this before, but like I love masculinity. I respect it. I think it's a beautiful thing. Like I think all that I've heard growing up is about toxic masculinity. So rarely have I ever heard anything positive said about it. And I'm like, I identify as a woman. So I'm like, well, that's a bummer for the guys. I'm curious if like the conversation around toxic masculinity that we've all grown up around had any kind of negative impact for like the men on the panel. Like, do you feel like being masculine makes you toxic? Were you ever made to feel that way? Or do you have a positive view of it?
I feel like it's never affected me personally.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I'm a dick about it in any way.
Fair, okay.
I don't think I've ever been accused of doing any of that.
Yeah.
So I can't say for me personally, probably not.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm curious for the rest of the men on the panel.
I don't think so. Not that I could think of, anyway.
Awesome.
No, so like as someone who has identified as a feminist, for a super long time, like I feel like there's something. I don't know. I do think that there are a lot of elements of our culture which are a little hostile towards men, right? Like I think the portrayals of men in like popular culture sometimes tend to emphasize how stupid they are,
Yeah.
or like whatever, right? And then, like I can see how everybody is sort of affected by that. But I also think that emphasizing the need for men to ally with women, that a lot of these struggles that we have, not just women's issues but men's issues, are going to take both genders to solve, and that having that adversarial conflict between them doesn't help either side. I think that's the approach that we need to get towards.